put a title on this yet, and yet it's estrangement that I want to talk about. And, you know, yeah, where to begin? My name's Sunday. I've been estranged by 3 adult daughters for nigh on 20 years now. And, I've done my work. And now for me, what I'm seeing is that there's a tidal wave of information. There is a tidal wave of newly estranged people arriving into this kind of weird situation of being cut off by our adult children, parents being cut off by adult children. And they seem to be getting younger, not just the parents, but the adult children as well, it seems to be. And there's a whole raft of reasons as to why that might be happening. I'm now interested, curious about the bigger kind of reasons, picture around this changing shape of family and the evolution of the family. So as a sort of like a long timer in this experience, I have learned a lot about myself and also about the language, about the situation. And I'm recognizing that people who first come into this, very often it's shock, denial, distress, bereavement, panic, all of that. Because it's a massive loss, and it's like the first stages are how to kind of live a life with this going on. And somebody recently said to me, it's like an ongoing kind of problem, not speaking or not being spoken to by your adult children. And I think a priority is getting to look after yourself. That is the first priorities. How can you minimize the physical and emotional, spiritual, all that kind of damage to you as a human being at that human being level? And that definitely is the thing. I mean, I know that there's people who have ended their own lives as a result of this. The pain, the distress of it being more than they can bear. So I've had a Facebook group and a community for the last 10 years of this, around about 10 years. And as I've evolved through my own experience, the group's evolved as well. So my group tends to be more about looking at the personal, how we evolve as human beings through this experience. And, in years gone by, it was more about how to move through the grief, even though I kind of didn't know what I was doing. How do you cope with a life without one or more of your adult children in your life? And somebody else has recently said, estrangement is the gift that keeps on giving. And it's true, it never ends. It's like constant in our lives. Oprah Winfrey's talked about it, those kind of public figures now, that it's out in the public realm. It's being talked about way more than it was when I first experienced it, or even 10 years ago when I set my group up. So I think the priority is to look after yourself. It's like, how do I get support? How do I actually live through these first months, weeks, years, however long it takes to get through that first initial process of the absolute shock of the bereavement? I didn't even know it was a bereavement when I first started. I didn't know that I was living through a living bereavement, where people were still alive, that there was but they were gone to all intents and purposes. And that was huge, and then comes this point in our journey for many of us where we think, okay, so this is how it is. How do I live? How do I enjoy Christmas again? How do I enjoy all the holidays, the kind of family days? How do I mix in society again with this kind of burden? Because I think perhaps it's impossible to even think that you can get rid of this burden, either as an estranging adult child or as an estranged parent. There's some baggage that is kind of lodged at a cellular level. You could say that actually you might be able to get rid of it and fond farewell and all that and just focus on. And there's some biological wiring that I think is more almost impossible to snip. You can do as many thread cuts or cord cuttings, or the level of inner work that we do, or that you might choose to do if you're not at that stage yet. It's how to carry this little bundle of living grief, like many people do when they've lost a family member, or they've had a child that's died. How do you get to have this as part of you, and it doesn't consume you? It doesn't actually determine the trajectory, the main trajectory of your life. And that's the kind of evolution that I foster, both for myself and from the communities and the clients that I work with. In one way, it is an end, and in another way, it's a fantastic new beginning with its dependence of this bag of pain that we carry, without it overwhelming us. So I have a couple of communities that I am evolving through Substack, personal growth, self-love ones. And then I have an online Facebook group that is completely available for people who do connect with me on Facebook Messenger, by the way. I don't just let anybody in who asks to join. Because I think if you can't have a conversation with me on Messenger about your just a brief synopsis of your estrangement experience, then perhaps my group isn't a good fit. There's loads of estrangement groups on Facebook now. And depending where you are in your own personal growth journey, it'll sit with you or it won't. And I'm a member in quite a few, and I keep putting I'm a writer as well. So I write about estrangement. I write about relationships. I'm fascinated by relationships, how they go wrong, what's missing, why communication's so difficult, why we get into fear with each other. It's so common, me included. I'm scared. I'm scared of the feelings that I have around if I bump and when I bump into my estranged adult children, who I love deeply and who would love to have back in my life, and would love to live through some of those past experiences of where communication went wrong. So, there's an invitation here from me to you. If you are experiencing estrangement of any kind, whether it's a kind of distancing, emotional estrangement, or whether it's an actual physical estrangement, and the invitation is to come and explore with me. Like, come and find out who you are. Come and find out your past. I have certain belief systems around certain things, spiritual and soul-based belief systems. And you may not, and at the same time, you can fit into my group. There's many different people in there of different belief systems and different religious, political. And the religious and politicals tend to kind of stay out of the conversations, and yet, they are part of us, and I have a go at accommodating everybody's difference in the spaces that I create. That's something that's really important to me, that I just want, I want us to get along, really. And, those trigger feelings that we often feel are kind of really useful material to kind of dig around in, to see, how do I get to be okay when I'm triggered? How do I get to be curious about why I'm being triggered? So if any of this I won't say I say that a lot, I've noticed. If any of this resonates with you, if you feel like it touches you in some way, then reach out to me, and somehow, some way, because I'm not particularly streamlined in how I get people into spaces that I hold. You kind of have to. I've said it again, haven't I? You kind of have to. My New Year's agreement to myself is to drop the kind of out of my vocabulary. Well, kind of. And if if you want to reach out to me and come and play in some of the spaces that I'm holding, I'd love to see you there. Um, my email address is sundygilchrist@gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook. My name is quite unique, so it's an easy way to find me. sundygilchrist@gmail.com, or Sundy Gilchrist on Facebook, or Sundy Gilchrist here on Substack. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it there. Love you lots. I'll speak again soon. Bye. I have to find the off button. I need my glasses on for that. End. Bye-bye.